Awesome. We are live on Facebook and we are also live right here on Zoom. So you guys are all welcome to today's class. This is the Social Impact Innovation Fellowship. So this is not just a Facebook Live somewhere, but then we've decided to do a bonanza for everyone to just have a taste of what is going on in our Zoom classes. So it is a very, very, very interesting. It has been an interesting 2 weeks so far. It's a 4 weeks virtual leadership fellowship program. So we've done 2 weeks already, and that has been great. So today we have a very, very interesting person, influential person in the global health space and nonprofit space. He's a big brother to me, a senior colleague, and he's someone that I've learned so much from. And bringing him to talk to us today about something that is very important and something that is also his area of specialty is a very, very rare privilege. Every time I call him, he always answers, and I really appreciate that, Dr. Nsofor. So today we will be talking about advocacy, a tool for social change, or as a tool for social change. But before we start, I'll just talk about him a little bit, and then he will take up the session while we sit down, have our notepads, take notes, and at the end of the day, we'll ask questions. So Dr. Nsofor is our 8th speaker for this fellowship program, which is really amazing. We have 15 speakers, all together. And then we also have 9 panelists and 3 moderators. So we've invested a lot into ensuring that our fellows have access to the best professionals in this space. So let me introduce Dr. Nsofor. Dr. Nsofor is a graduate of Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and Nnamdi Azikiwe University Medical School. He's a senior New Voices Fellow at the Aspen Institute and a senior Atlantic Fellow for Health Equity at George Washington University. In March 2020, Ifeanyi was recognized by UK-based Analytica to be among the coronavirus top 100 healthcare professionals globally. He was selected by New African magazine as one of the 100 most influential Africans of 2020. Ifeanyi is the CEO of EpiAfrique and Director of Policy and Advocacy at Nigeria Health Watch. In the last 15 years, Ifeanyi has led several research projects in Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, Ghana, Zambia, and Nigeria. Ifeanyi was co-lead of the evaluation of performance of the African Union humanitarian support to contain the Ebola outbreak in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Ifeanyi is currently leading research to document Nigeria's epidemic preparedness plans prior to COVID-19, Nigeria's response to COVID-19, and response for future epidemic preparedness. He has written above 80 opinion pieces, 24 are specifically on COVID-19. Ifeanyi has been interviewed by Al Jazeera, BBC, Forbes, and a host of other news outlets. Ifeanyi's 2018 TEDx Ogui Road talk is titled "Without Health, We Have Nothing." Ifeanyi is married to Omegie, I hope I got that right, and they have 2 daughters, Yagazie and Chimamanda, and a 12-year-old dog, Simba. Yeah, I know that dog. So today he'll be talking to us on advocacy, a tool for social change. You're welcome, Dr. Ifeanyi.
Okay, so, thank you so much.
So we would give you the platform to just talk about all you have for us, and then after your session we will ask questions and we'll conclude from there.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for that beautiful whitewash. Yeah, it's always a privilege to to share ideas, and the way that I've structured this today is I want it to be very participatory, because for me every opportunity like this is always a learning experience for me too, just to learn from what other people are doing, what other people talk, it kind of makes me better. I think that with that approach, it also makes everybody better. So I'll just share. Sorry, Chris, can you enable me to share my slide?
Yeah, you can share your slide. You can actually share your slide.
Oh, it says hold disabled participant screen sharing. I think
Okay,
you need.
okay,
Yeah,
just 1 minute.
yeah.
All right, you should be able to do that now.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what we're talking about is advocacy, a tool for social change. Um, so first of all, I just want us to try a very short exercise. I know everybody has a mobile phone with them. And if you have a mobile phone, this is the question I want us to answer. When you hear advocacy, what words come to mind for you as an individual? And for you to answer this question, please go to mentimeter.com. Then use this code. Once you use the code, um, and you start entering your answer, the answers will start coming out. So go to mentimeter.com, use code 76194257. Okay. Let me repeat again because I'll go off this presentation now and share the Mentimeter screen. Mentimeter.com, use code 76194257. Okay, so let me share my Mentimeter screen so that we can all look at the responses as they come in. Okay, so go to Mentimeter. Sorry, uh, there's a little error there. Not Menti, go to menti.com and use the code 76194257. Menti.com, MENTI.com. MENTI.com. Use the code 76194257. Okay, so let me see if people have started answering.
So, Dr. Nsofor, give us the number again so that I can put it in the chat box. 7619
4257.
4257. Okay.
Yes. When you hear the word advocacy, what words come to mind? Okay, so somebody says support. When you hear advocacy, what words come to mind? Awesome. So, okay, round table, speaking for others, talk, change, dialogue, support. Okay, keep them coming. You can enter up to 5 words per person. So just keep them coming. As you're entering, it's populating and creating a word cloud for us to use. Okay, we'll just take an extra 1 minute, 1 more minute. Okay. Okay, speaking for others, talk, roundtable, dialogue, loud voice. Interesting. Support, change, communication. Okay. Okay. 30 seconds more. All right. Policy, establish solutions, change, help others have a voice, speaking for others, loud voice, dialogue, support, talk, change, roundtable. Okay, let's take 10 more minutes before I go off the Mentimeter screen. 10 more seconds, just in case, if some people are still typing. Okay, okay. I'm assuming people have, everybody's done so that we can continue. All right. Okay, just give
I
me.
think some people are posting in the chat session as
Oh,
well.
okay,
So those that couldn't go to the
okay, okay. So that's fine. Let me just. I've just done a screen grab of the one on Mentimeter. I'll just add it to the presentation quickly, then we can use that as talking point. Okay, great. So let me go back to my presentation. Okay, so these are people's responses. Okay, so can we just take like 5 minutes to talk through these responses from people? And I want to start by, so the one that I find very interesting is loud voice. Uh, the person that made that input. Are you happy to tell us why you think why you chose that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just take like 30 seconds. Why did you what about advocacy reminds you of loud voice?
Okay, it actually reminds me of the fact that a lot of times when people want their issues or project to be heard, they actually try to talk in various areas, in various platforms. So I felt like, okay, this one's supposed to be something that he speaks. So I think of that.
Okay. Okay, so to you, because it involves, people meeting, discussing, sharing ideas, that's what loud voice means to you.
Yeah. To the person is something that is if so people need to hear it. So if
Okay.
someone is actually is something that he don't want people to hear, it's not going to be loud. So if it is something that everybody has to hear, it has to be loud.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Shadrach. So the second one that stands out for me is let others have a voice. Who entered that and why, if you want to share.
Okay, so I'm the one who entered that.
Okay.
This is Chris. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just feel that advocacy is a tool that you can actually use to help a group of people or a community to have a voice. For instance, there could be some community problems that require some policymakers or some leaders or the governments to actually be able to solve them. But because this community, they do not have someone who speaks for them, who bring them together to ensure that there is that one voice and they can actually talk to these policymakers or influencers to be able to make sure that those community problems are solved. So advocacy is one of the tools that you can actually use to help a group of people to have a voice and speak up, and then get the policymakers and decision makers to listen to them and act accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So, Chris, let's just have a little chat here. Would you say, so? For me, if I'm to add to what you have said, I would say is to help other people amplify their voices.
Exactly.
Because I think traditionally, those of us who work within a non-profit have always felt that communities don't have a voice, but they do have a voice. What we do is to help them amplify the voices. Would you agree with that?
True. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So let's take two more. Who entered roundtable and why?
Hi, Dr. Ifeanyi. This is Shola.
Okay. Hi, Shola.
I entered Roundtable. So I was trying to, like you said, the first words that come to your mind. And when I think of advocacy and a roundtable is a place where everyone, there isn't specifically one leader. Everyone comes together to hash out an issue or to discuss an issue and come up with a solution without any encumbrances of, oh, I'm the leader, I'm the subordinate, or oh, I'm the follower, I'm the leader. But it's everyone equally seated. Everyone has an equal voice. Everyone can contribute and everyone can lend their voice to the issue and come up with a solution together.
Awesome. Thanks, Shola. And I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think the challenge for us as advocates is because, again, even at that roundtable, people come from different backgrounds, different levels of knowledge, experiences. And it's very important for those of us who maybe are more experienced, more literate, more vocal, to understand what you said, that everybody's equal, and really make those people who ordinarily will feel that, look, I cannot speak in front of all these people, so that those people, over time will find their voices. And you're taking it back to what Chris said, said initially. I think that's just so important, because if we don't do it that way, then just a few people would consistently have their voices loud, going back to what Shadrach said, and other voices will be drowned. And that on its own becomes, really inequitable. Would you agree with that,
Absolutely.
Shola? Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So let's take one more. Established solutions. Who entered that and why? Okay. So even if the person doesn't want to speak, any other person can speak. When you look at established solutions, how does it resonate with you? What does it mean? Anybody can chip in.
Okay, I think it means helping people see their problems and ways they can come out of it.
Okay. Okay, I like that. I like that because, to me, advocacy, especially when, we're trying to, going back to what Chris said, amplify voices of community members. I think there should be some level of coaching with it, and I think that is the meat of what you've said, Susan. Helping the people, giving them information, giving them, the right tools to be able to find the solutions, on their own, really, because most times people think they don't have the solution to some of their issues. But I think one thing we should do as advocates is to help them look inwards and begin to find solutions, first, within their own context before, other external solutions come. Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you for making that very engaging and participatory. Okay, so to be honest, to me, equity is really the foundation of advocacy. So interestingly, I took this photo when in 2019, I was at the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda for a 2-week residential, training, understanding the Rwandan health system, and also going into the communities to see the impact of community health workers and how they do their advocacy and provide some level of prevention and health promotion within their communities. So the first day, once we walked into the classroom, I saw this mirror. It's on the wall. I did not type it myself. It's actually on the wall. Once I saw it, it kind of resonated with me because I think it really defined everything I had been doing before then, as far as advocacy, is concerned. Because achieving equity in healthcare depends on equity in health education. And that health education bit, I think, is I would want to replace health education here with advocacy. So if I did that, it will read achieving equity in healthcare depends on equity in advocacy. And that equity in advocacy, if we go back to what Shola said, ensuring that people understand their power within the community, and also ensuring that as we're trying to provide services to people, advocate for issues for people, we advocate for issues that meet people at the point of their own need. So for instance, if you give me 100 million naira to improve healthcare, say in where now? If you give me 100 million naira to improve health in Suleja, let me use Suleja as an example. It's highly populated, poor sanitation, there's no water, so, good water supply apart from boreholes and stuff like that. I will not go and start building a 5-star hospital there. I would focus on more on prevention. I'll focus on more on social determinants of health, water, community education, help people understand why they should stop doing public stooling, providing, pipe-borne water to people's homes, ensuring that, the streets are kept clean, ensuring there's good, waste disposal within those communities. So really, equity is at the heart of advocacy. So, interestingly, when just listening to how people participated in the Mentimeter poll, it's like we did some kind of mapping, just mapping what people, what words come to people's minds when they hear the word advocacy. And I think that stakeholder mapping is so important in advocacy because you need to understand who are the people involved in this? Who are the different stakeholders involved in this? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their contexts? What makes them tick? What are the things I shouldn't do when I go to this particular stakeholder compared to going to the next one? And understanding the key stakeholders as part of that advocacy that you're going into is really very, very important, because it really it helps you, no, I don't want to use the word adversary because nobody's fighting here, but just knowing people and what are the things that make the different people or organizations, whether they are state or non-state actors, or just doing that mapping. So for instance, if we had time, would have just done another, maybe we'll do an exercise and say, if we're doing this particular advocacy, let's do a stakeholder mapping. Who do you think are those, stakeholders we should think about when we're going into this particular advocacy? So doing that is very key. Last year, I supported the Niger State Contributory Health Scheme, or their own state health insurance, to develop their communication strategy. And one of the first things I did when I went on the first scoping visit was a stakeholder mapping. Because what I told them was that communication, or whatever I want to call it, this is advocacy. So for us to be able to now get the kind of messaging that would resonate with different stakeholders that we want to be part of the state health insurance scheme, we needed to do stakeholder mapping. Guess what? Before we even went to Mina for that stakeholder mapping, we had done our own stakeholder mapping in the office, just because, well, we felt, well, so to some extent, we could tell different stakeholders that, that will be present in Mina. By the time we got to Mina and did a stakeholder mapping with the state people, it was a totally different, output at the end of the day, because there were even communities, organizations we did not know about. They were even much more influential than people that we thought were influential, just doing it from Abuja here. So it's just so important, because I also think that it also shows a lot of respect, because before you now come and you start putting out any advocacy, to cause any social change you're thinking about, understanding the people, the organizations, understanding their different characteristics and attributes, when you come to relate to them, they would know that you've done your homework, because some things that you do would just appear very respectful. So for instance, apologies, Shola, but my wife is from Edo State. My mother-in-law is Yoruba. My mother-in-law is from Lagos State. Of course, if I go to Lagos State or to Southwest to do some advocacy, with elders, for instance, I need to dobale now. I will dobale, there are some things I would do. If I go to Anambra State, where I come from, and I want to meet with elders, I have to come with my what do you call it? With my kola nut, and my peanut butter with pepper in it. Because this is understanding the people we're going to meet, understanding their cultures, understanding those things that they value. Because doing that at the beginning really makes social change easy, so that you won't get lots of pushback, because people will just welcome you. I grew up in Kano State. If I was going to Kano State, to do advocacy, there are some things, I will not enter into the meeting, for instance, and start going to shake women or going to stay next to women in those kind of meetings, because their culture and their religion, the tradition does not, they think it would be disrespectful if you did that. So those are just some of the reasons why, I think stakeholder mapping is very important. Not just understanding the people and the organizations, but most importantly, understanding their attributes, their characteristics, their cultures, what they value, things they will find offensive, and all these things really would make us better advocates, and ultimately, the cause that we're pushing much more successful. I don't know how many people have watched this movie, The Godfather. If you have, can you just raise up your hand? You can. Let me just see how many people have watched The Godfather. We know the young ones today. Aha. Okay, only Shola and Chris. Interestingly, so the Godfather. Well, I also don't blame people, because it was the Godfather Part 1 was produced in 1972. It came out in 1972. They have parts 1, 2, 3. A very powerful movie based on a novel by Mario Puzo. And this is the Godfather, Don Corleone. That was his name in the movie. And it was a movie, that really dramatized the way, mobs, the mafia in New York, were kind of, their life, the families and generations. That's why they have 1, 2, 3. One thing about Don Corleone, that one statement I liked about him in all the from part 1 to 3 was, when people come to ask him for help, you see, okay, so I want my son to get into this school. I've gone to the principal is being difficult. They're saying we should do this, we should do that. Don Corleone is usually very calm. And after you finish talking, he will just say, well, we'll make him an offer he cannot refuse. And, it was just so powerful. If I don't remember anything about the Godfather movies, that's making them an offer they cannot refuse. Of course, for him, most times he's also using his influence, because people know him, people feared him, people revered him. But I think if we bring him home, if we bring this statement back to advocacy, how can we make people offers they cannot refuse? If we're advocating to government at different levels, for particular policy issues, for particular social issues, how can we make them offers they cannot refuse? What is it? How can we go about that? What should we say? How should we say it? Who should we go with? I don't know, Chris, Shola, do you guys want to chip in since you guys have watched the movie? And bring it home to advocacy? How have you made offers to people that they cannot refuse in your own advocacy work?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so making offers that they cannot refuse. In part of the advocacy work that I've actually done is about, for some of these political leaders that we get to meet, the offer would be, we know you're interested in contesting for a second term, but then if you're able to implement this policy, or if you're able to implement what we are bringing to the table, what this would do for you is that it would make your impact in, this community, or it will make your impact in this state felt. Unlike every other leader who had come and gone, but then for your own case, your case will be different. So, and also apart from the fact that your name would be, written on, in gold and all of that, but then it's also about your own family as a whole that would also benefit from this. So it's not just about politics, it's about an influence and ensuring that, you have people that would say, okay, you've done great, and they probably vote you a second time. But this is something that is applicable to every one of us. This solution applies to your family, it applies to your children, it applies to also the common person in the village or in that rural community. So it's not just about the fact that, it's just about these people, but it's about the entire humanity, or the entire people in your state or in your local government. So that way, it's something that they can actually relate with. It's something that they can see that this is also beneficial to me and not just to them. So I'm not helping them, I'm also helping myself.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. So, Chris, what I hear you say, especially with the politicians, is making the offer to them so that they are able to tie health policies, health achievements to political votes, and knowing that once they do that, that this can put them back in office, once that happens, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Shala, you want to chip in? How have you made people offers? Okay, go ahead.
So what Chris has said is, I mean, that's how you, in one aspect, look at advocacy. You think of it as a win-win situation. So you have a goal, you have something that you want to achieve in having a conversation with this person, but that's your own goal. So you have to think about how you're going to pitch that thing, that goal to the other person, say for example a policymaker, in such a way that he hears it, because I don't want to say use the phrase and thinks of what's in it for me, but in such a way that he hears it and it appeals to what matters to him. So I think in advocacy, you have to think about what matters to me, the person who is advocating for this cause. You also have to think about what matters to the audience, the person that you're taking that advocacy to, the person that you want to do that thing that you want them to do. Because really, if you think about human beings, nobody's going to do something that is not in their best interest. So if you want healthcare for the people, okay, I have the power to provide better healthcare for my people, but how do I benefit from this? So, however, that being said, that also makes me think about what's the phrase now? Okay, well, it makes me think about lobbying, because I know that advocacy is not lobbying. So I'm not making a statement here. I'm more or less asking you a question. That how do you marry, advocating without lobbying? If you know that, okay, you have a goal, but you also have to think about that other person's best interest or what's in it for that other person, in order to make sure that what you're saying is heard.
Okay, yeah. So interestingly, let me use an example to answer that question. The support that I gave to the Niger State Contributory Health Scheme, what we were doing, the trainings for them, I remember, and we're talking about, really something like this, making people offers they cannot refuse. And they shared an experience with me. One of the very top, civil servants in the state that was supposed to approve, some funding for them, I think to establish their office or something. And when they went to the guy, they were telling him about health insurance, the benefit, this, that, if your wife gets pregnant, she can deliver in the facility. If your child is sick, all those, the normal story. And the man looked at them and said, my friend, all my wives are elderly. I'm elderly. All my children are I've even married. I have grandchildren. My children, I don't have any child that will be taking immunization. And the guy, in a way, felt that this thing really did not concern him as an elderly person. So what they now did was to say, but he also covers issues affecting elderly people. Now, people like you, that are elderly, close to 60, 65, they may have non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes. Before they even finish speaking, they might say, aha, I have diabetes. If people are talking now. Do you understand? So so it's that, because when they shared that story, I felt it was a huge story. But I told them, you see, if you had made inquiries about this man before you went, you would have known that this man was diabetic, or at least he was dealing with some issues. You get what I mean?
Yes.
So in that case, I mean, it's not lobbying. It's just trying to see, like you and Chris said, what is it because we're dealing with human beings at the end of the day. Sorry, you want to say something, Shola?
No, I was nodding my head and agreeing with you.
Okay.
And then yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's just so important, because we're dealing with people, human beings. They have their idiosyncrasies, they have their likes and their dislikes. As long as funds are not exchanging hands, you're not bribing the person because you want the person, or you're not telling the person, okay, the next time you come to Abuja, I'll put you in Nikon instead of putting you in Bolton White, trying to induce that person, I think once we don't do that, then we don't cross into the realm of lobbying, but just focusing on finding those things that appeal to people and using that as a basis for our advocacy and to get their buy-in.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. So one thing I've also, over the years, I've thought about advocacy, and this is a formula that I think this formula works for me. Because even when I'm developing advocacy plans, I don't think so much. I don't, because of this formula, I don't overthink it. It just comes naturally. And the formula is pretty simple. Defining what the problem is. Understanding what the solutions to the problems are. Then, coming up with calls to action. To me, these 3 points would help you come up with different advocacy points. So for instance, let's use the health insurance that we're talking about. Niger State, they've signed their health insurance law. They set up an agency. They want Niger people, Nigerites or Niger State residents to buy into the scheme. So the problem here is that, so many people, most of the time when they are sick, they pay from out of pocket. If you don't have money, it will be a big issue for them. People die because of that. People go to hospital, they are not treated because their loved ones cannot make any kind of deposit. Pregnant women, somebody will be in labor and is bleeding. They won't admit her because nobody is there to make any kind of deposit. So they are all, you can identify, several problems, but you focus on one. So what are the solutions? What part of the solution is, well, that is why we're bringing health insurance, so that if you make some kind of prepayment, the Niger State Contributing Health Scheme is just 7,200 naira per annum per person. So if you make that small contribution, which kind of boils down to 600 naira per month, this is the kind of benefit you're going to get. They list the benefit for you. So call to action, what do we want people to do? So depending on who we're talking to. So if we go back to that man now, because when they went to that man, they wanted approval to be able to pay for the building where the agency would operate from. So what we want you to do, sir, is we want approval, for us to get our money to establish this. We want approval for you to help us speak to other influential people in the state. We want you, anytime you have audience with governor, please put in kind words for us. We want you, because we know that State House of Assembly members, respect you. Anytime they come for courtesy visits, please just mention that our scheme is taking off. This is the premium. These are the ways they can support. So just being able to, to demarcate these 3 points, identify the problem. All the time, we know what the solutions are. But I think most importantly, for the different stakeholders, what are the calls to action? If we're talking to a woman in, say, Minamem Market, we're telling her, well, you need to buy health insurance, because especially with the fact that you may soon get pregnant, or you're still thinking about having children, it will protect you from so and so. So just drop your 7,002, or if you want to pay in installments, that can be arranged. Things like that. And I think I thought about this when you look at social media and you see that most of the posts people make on social media, they think is advocacy. It's actually identifying the problem. So things like people say, Nigeria is not working. Nothing is working in this place. Nothing is working. Anytime you go, blah, blah. Okay, we know. What are the solutions? A few people will tell you the solutions. So what are the calls to action? What do you want us to do? What do you want me to do? How can I be part of the solution? That's basically what the call to action is. And call to action will differ depending on which stakeholder we're talking to. If we're talking to, young people, we want them to add their voice. We want them to make sure that they hold their leaders accountable. If we're talking to religious leaders, we want them to also begin to teach about civic responsibility for people, in church to begin to understand they have a role to play in governance and things like that. So this is, I think at the end of the day, if you guys don't take away anything from here, one of the things I want you to take away is this small formula for coming up with your advocacy point or whatever you want to advocate for. Identify the problem, give us 1 or 2 solutions, but most importantly, tell us call to action. And the call to action will differ depending on who it is you're talking to, because different people will have different contributions and responsibility to the social change you're trying to achieve. Does anybody want to make 1 or 2 statements? Can we take just 3 minutes?
Okay, Dr. Ifeanyi, thank you. Oh, yeah. All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for this simple formula. As you were talking, in fact, just drawing from the last things that you said now about people going on social media and, raising a lot of dust about the problem, it makes me, just for the sake of our audience, can you shed a bit more light about the difference between advocacy and activism?
Okay.
If there is a difference, and what the difference is or differences are.
Okay, so to be honest, to me, I really don't think there's a difference, because I think that it's really all about semantics. And I also think that over the years, we have misconstrued activists to be people who cause problems and not people who are trying to provide some kind of solution. You know, I think, you know, we have given advocacy some kind of notoriety, as if the person who is trying to be an activist does not want things to happen. Because, and bearing that in mind, I also think because of that, you know, because it's been misconstrued, when people identify themselves as activists, they don't, for instance, go through these steps. They're always talking about the problems. They're always talking about the problem, things that are not working. We know. Even if you speak to my 8-year-old daughter now, she will tell you the problems, some of the problems in Nigeria. You know, but what most activists don't try to understand is that on one hand, you need to also say, okay, these are the things, these are the solutions. Even if those solutions have not started working in our own context, we can use examples from other countries that were similar to in Africa to say these are the solutions that are happening there, you know, and these are the ways that we feel that people can be part of the change that we're pushing for. And one other thing I need to say is that you know, activists also give the impression is that they don't want to, if I go back to the words that people shared from the beginning, they don't want to have a roundtable discussion. They just want to be quarreling, you know, and calling out, do you understand? And calling out people in authority. It will not help you at the end of the day. And that's why for somebody that, you know, has that toga of advocate, the person is viewed differently from somebody that says I'm an activist.
Yes.
So, but
yes,
really, you know, if all things being equal, they mean the same thing, but we know they don't because of the way it's been misconstrued and
their
the way,
approaches and yes, yes, and that's the reason I raised it is because of this really brilliant formula that you have shared with us. Because you know, it's one thing to point a torch on the problem, like you said, everyone knows the problem, but only few people come up with solutions. But beyond, even because sometimes you would see a sleuth of solutions everywhere, but what are the key? So you come with the problem, the solution, but what do you want me to do about it? Out of these 10 possible solutions, which one can I do? Because the truth is, out of the 10 possible solutions, maybe one person can take 2 and do those 2 things. Another person can take 1 and do that 1 thing. Another person. So for the different solutions, there'll be different people or persons who can make those things happen. And that's what the call to action is. Tell me what you need me to do to make, you know, the problem go away. So that's where I think advocates are the champions, really. Thank you so much, Dr. Ifeanyi.
Thank you, Shola. I know, you know, so I know if I want Chris to do some things for me now, I'll go through Shola.
Yes.
Do you understand? I just got to tell Shola, when they get home, they should go. All I know is that Chris will call me in 2 days' time and say, hey, what is that thing said that he said we should do? You know, identifying, but, you know, just a little humor, but, you know, I think it's just very important because people are bombarded by all sorts of, people are even dealing with all sorts of issues. You get what I mean? So we need to also help people understand, you know, see the roles that they can play so that they play that role effectively. Somebody raised up.
Yeah, Dr. Nsofor, someone is asking a question. I see Chimeze also raising his hands, but someone said, how can one become an advocate? What do you need to start?
So again, you know, I mean, I was having a chat with some guys a few days ago. I say, my problem with the non-profit sector is that we usually like the big words. We like, you know, going around with big terms. I think everybody is an advocate because whether you realize it or not, you've been advocating for one thing or the other. But the key thing here is that what is it? What change do you want to see for you now who is asking the question? If I ask you all the myriad of problems in Nigeria or within your own community where you live, which one do you want to solve? Which one hits you the most? Because I think once you're able to identify that, then that's the problem. Then what are the solutions? You can look up some of the solutions you may know. Some you may need to dig deep to find evidence of what is working elsewhere. Then if you now do that, remember we talked about the mapping and the different stakeholders. If you now go to approach the different people for the call to action, you understand what your ask will be when you're meeting the different people who are part of that stakeholder group that you have mapped out already. So to be honest, everybody's an advocate. The question is, you need to understand that you have that within you. You need to understand that, there's a problem that you're created to solve. Because I think that's the beauty of fellowships like this, to help you understand that you can solve a problem in your community. Identify that problem, look up the solutions, get call to action, get the stakeholder, do something. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. You get what I mean? I don't know if I've succeeded in answering that.
Yeah, I hope so. For the person that asked, Chimezie is raising his hands. Chimezie, you can ask your question if you're there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I just want a little clarification on the topic. So in some texts and some courses that I've done, I just wanted to be sure, is advocacy targeted at policymakers and legislators, or at every other stakeholder, even the end users of the information? In some places, they say advocacy is targeted at really people who are influencers and people who can make a change through policies and all that. So just a clarification on that.
Okay. So, Chimezie, I think it's both, to be honest, because it also depends on what you're advocating for. But for instance, what we do in Nigeria Health Watch is that we say we want to build an active citizenship for health, because we believe that there's so much that NGOs like Nigeria Health Watch or individuals like Chris can do, individuals like Shola can do to cause the change that we want in Nigeria. But if we have every Nigerian having that mindset that I'm an active citizen, I can push for solutions, I can identify problems in my own context and find solutions and get people to be part of that change. So the answer is that it's both, but ultimately it depends on what it is that you're advocating for. Because sometimes, depending on what you're advocating for, you need, key personnel, whether they're in government or in non-profit or donor community and all. But ultimately, if you're advocating for things that have to do with accountability, holding governments accountable, you need to carry everybody along, because that's the only time we can build the kind of momentum that we want. And I think that the NSAS campaign is a very good example of that. Once you have the youth of Nigeria stand behind NSAS campaign, the matter ended. Do you understand? So it really depends on what issue you're tackling, but I want you to go away with the fact that we should build an active citizenship for health, so that everybody gets into their consciousness that they can be part of change. They can drive social change wherever they are, because they have that capacity to do that. It's just for us to help them identify, how they should go about it, provide resources and network for them, and and change will come. Yeah. Okay, so let me just run through, just have a few more slides. So I think we've talked about some of this already, factors to consider in advocacy. The language, empathy. Let me just bring them all out. Just take 2 or 3 minutes. Culture, religion, patience, partnerships, demographics, evidence. What medium are you going to use, to put out your information? And I'm sure, if you look at this, everybody here can pick up one and talk about. But I'll just pick on 2. I'll pick on empathy. I think empathy is something that we really need to cultivate, because one thing that I tell people when I talk about advocacy is that, you see, when you go to a community, for instance, and you're advocating, say, for people to stop public schooling, when you give reasons for that, If you speak to 10 people, maybe one person immediately would have a change of heart and will come to an understanding of what you're talking about, and that will lead immediately to behavior change. For the other 9, you need regular, putting out information, meeting with them, giving them reasons, and that requires a lot of empathy. Because for some of those 9, it's not like they want to be difficult, though, but to them, they just think that, look, is it not the open defecation that even my grandfathers were doing? My grandfather died when he was 100 years old. You're telling me that it's open defecation that will kill us? It's not true. So having that empathy, but consistently engaging with people, giving them reasons why they should do what it is you want them to do. If we go back to the Godfather, making them an offer they can't refuse, because with time you see that those 9 people at different stages will begin to adapt that behavior change that you're talking about, and that is when that social change will begin to happen. And for me, evidence, also bear in mind that most of the time the solutions we're talking about have to be evidence-based. Most of the things that we're providing as solution, it's either it has come up based on researches that people have done, or part of a think tank somewhere, people came together. But those things are really, part of evidence, and we need to use that. And I think for religion, Nigeria is a deeply religious country. I think this is something, knowing how to navigate around religion, especially talking with religious leaders who don't agree with you. For instance, with COVID-19, we know some Christian religious leaders have been telling people they shouldn't take COVID-19 vaccine. Even telling other pastors, quarreling with other pastors, why are you telling your people to take COVID-19 vaccine? It can be demoralizing for people who are trying to advocate for this cause. But for me, it's also an opportunity to say, how can we take a step back, reanalyze this situation and say, how can we make these pastors, what offers can we make these pastors so that they see things from our own point of view? Because ultimately, once they become our mouthpieces, our spokespersons, they will help us move our advocacy efforts forward. So I'll just run through my slides so that if we have any questions to ask, we can just round up with the question. So I just felt I needed to add this artwork. So sometime last year, early this year, I mentored some fellows under the Arts and Medicine Fellowship. So one of the guys I mentored, his name is John Mokocha. He's a 6th-year medical student at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. And this was his own project, When he shared this with me, one thing that just came to mind immediately to me was this particular artwork is COVID-19 vaccine nationalism in action. Because my interpretation of this artwork is that, you see this clenched fist up there, to me, it represents richer countries, richer Western nations buying up the COVID-19 vaccine to the detriment of, say, African countries and Asian countries not having, vaccines that they need for their people. Countries like Canada have bought up to 4 to 5 times what their population needs. The UK has bought up to 3 to 4 times what their population needs. And these other different hands are, represent Africans, for instance, African countries reaching out to say, guys, release this vaccine now so that we can see vaccines to vaccinate our people. To the extent that even with the 3.9 million doses Nigeria got from COVAX, the Minister of State for Health has directed that we stop vaccinating. Why? Because we're not sure when the next dose will come. And because of that, people who have already gotten the first doses need to get their second doses. And that's why they are calling, for the vaccination to stop in Nigeria. So this really, for me, demonstrates COVID-19 vaccine nationalism. And there are different ways different people have been advocating for richer countries to ensure that they understand that this is a global pandemic, and individualism or nationalism will not help us end this particular pandemic. Of course, the different mediums for advocacy, whether it's social media, it's radio, it's TV, it's the roundtable that I spoke about, it's writing opinion pieces, your thought leadership, you're a thought leader in that particular area that you're advocating for. I remember somebody said loud noise, a loud voice, going to communities, using your handheld uh, microphone to advocate about different issues. But to me, as an Igbo person, and I'm rounding up now, one word really comes to mind. I really like this word, Igwebike. Igwebike means strength in the community. It takes a village, it takes a community. And that is one thing I also want to take away from this talk today. Advocacy is not an individual thing. Even when you identify your passion, you identify the change you want to cause in your community, you need people, to join you. You need people, you need people that you go and talk about the problems, the solutions, and what call to action you want them to be part of. So the community, working as a community here is really key. It takes the community, to drive social change. And like I said initially, we really need to ultimately begin to push for active citizenship for health, because we need everybody to be on board, to be part of, social change, no matter the sector, whether it's health, education, economic empowerment, just name it, whatever it is, whatever social change you want to drive, you need, a community of people to be able to drive that social change. There you go. Over to you, Chris.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ifeanyi, for this amazing session. So we are actually 2 minutes past our time, but then we would give, I can see a couple of people raising their hands. So we'll just give the opportunity for 2 people to ask questions, and then we'll round up this session. So we'll take first question from David, and then we'll take from McAnn, and then we'll round up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ifeanyi, for this well-presented section. So I want to ask, maybe I needed a clarification on this particular session. From everybody's contribution on advocacy, I see that advocacy can be as a means of amplifying voices, supporting, championing causes. Now, I want to ask, as a social impact leader, can I advocate for something that I really don't have a passion for? I just needed a solution because there's a problem. I have defined the problem. I've seen what the problem is. Can I advocate for that cause to ensure that there is a solution to that problem, even though I don't have passion for that particular?
Yeah. So David, the answer is yes, because sometimes what you need to build the passion, in question is actually to do first. Once you start doing, because one thing that happens is that once you start doing, you begin to meet people, you begin to know more about the issue, you begin to have meetings that will make you break down even when you see the kind of issue people are, are dealing with. So the answer is yes, because ultimately doing can build that passion and make this particular change that you're looking for become a lifelong commitment for you.
Great. So Anne, over to you.
Okay, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for the session. It was really, I learned a lot. I was one to ask the question first in the chat box, how can one start? And from what you said everyone is an advocate, because initially I have this mindset that, okay, it's just for some people who are always in the front line, they're advocating, because especially the NSAS, people were on the streets advocating and the rest. But then I want to ask, I want to know, for someone like me, I stay in a community, and one thing that bothers me is when I see young people, a lot of young people are they've lost interest in school, and then they've lost interest in going to school. Most of them, their parents.
I don't know if you can hear Anne, but I can't hear her again.
She said,
can you hear her?
Yeah, I heard her until you started speaking. Yeah, she said that, in her community, there are young people who have lost interest in school. Their parents cannot afford to pay for their fees and things like that.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
So how can one begin to, because one thing I did was, okay, I am currently running a monthly mentorship program because most of them are into cultism, a lot of just social vices. So I'm just bringing a platform where they come to. But now I'm trying to see how to get the community, because we pay for venue and other things, how to get the community to see what we're doing and probably, give us a venue and also get parents to, but I don't know how to go about. So how can someone start in that line? And also, secondly, can one become an advocate as a profession? And how can one pay bills through that? Just like people who have NGOs, they run projects and every other thing. Can one just advocate for this and that pays the bill? Or will you have an NGO to become an advocate? I just want to get clarified on the second one too.
Okay, so thank you so much. And well, the answer to your first question is that the way to go about this, your community has community leaders. There's one community leader that everybody, reveres. So you need to go on advocacy visits to that community leader. To do what? To share experiences, to talk about the problem that you identified, to tell him about the solutions that you're providing already, and to now make that ask. What you want is maybe for you guys to use a community center, for him to pay for somewhere. He can even decide, well, you can come to my palace or something to be having the meetings, but you have to make that ask. And I think that when you get to the community leader's house, you have talked about the problems, you share their solutions. Part of your solution, allow one of those young people that you're mentoring already to talk about how your mentoring has caused change in the person's life, because that is instant result that the leader can relate to. Then you can now make your ask, and make your ask to be very brief, one or two, so that it is easier, for it to be something that the community leader cannot refuse. The answer to your second question is that yes, you can be an advocate an advocate as a profession, absolutely. And because of that, I don't want you to underestimate what you started already. The social change you're leading in your community already may just be that stepping stone that you need to that profession for advocates. Because I don't know whether you share the work that you do on social media, whether you tag people who matter, people who have interest in those areas, if you follow them. Because to be honest, in today's world, people are looking for those that are actually causing change and have concrete examples of how they're doing that, and to support some of those causes. So those are my answers, and I hope I've been able to at least make some dent in your.
Yes, you have. You have. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. So I have one last question. Let's just take it. Charles has been raising his hand. So Charles, you can quickly go on, so we can use the next 2 minutes to round up on that. Charles, are you there? Okay, so one last word, Dr. Ifeanyi. One last word for everyone and to our fellows who have been listening to you so far.
To be honest, I think is to go back to this formula, because I think it kind of helps people conceptualize advocacy and to understand that it's not rocket science. And let me just use what Anne said to round up. Anne has identified a problem in her community, which is the fact that lots of youth are out of school. They are disillusioned in life. They are going into all sorts of criminal activities. Because of that, she's mentoring them, which is the solution. Now, her mentees are growing. She needs support in places that they can be meeting. One way to do that is to go to their leader, the most revered leader in that community, present what they've done so far, allow one of those mentees to share how the work Macan is doing has made a lot of impact in his or her life, and now make the ask of their community leader. This formula, I think, is something that I want people to take away and really marinate it, think about it. You can even write it down, open a Word document and begin to write problems that you identify, what solution, what call to action you use, who are the stakeholders and all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ifeanyi. Thank you very much for this amazing session. We really appreciate the fact that you took your time to just break it down, simplified it for everyone. Like the fellows are pretty young, and they are actually most of them are just starting out, and I felt that they actually needed to know a lot more about advocacy. And the truth is, you can't actually do social impact work and non-profit work successfully without the element of advocacy in it. So we really appreciate you for just giving that time to talk to us about advocacy as a tool for social change. I can see that a couple of people still have questions. Please put it in the chat session, or put it in the WhatsApp group, and we will find a way to send it across to Dr. Ifeanyi so he can answer it. Reason is because our next speaker is already waiting, and he's ready, to unleash for his session. So his session, I'm going to talk about it very soon. So let's round up this session so I can let Dr. Ifeanyi go. So Dr. Ifeanyi, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. God bless you for giving your time to do this for us.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Shola. So I'll just PDF this presentation and send to you, Chris.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. That would be great. We'll pass it across to everyone.
All right. Okay. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you.